Hello, and welcome to another episode of And Yet We Believe. My name is Roger Pimentel,
My name is Anne.
and we are a married couple having honest conversations about the beautiful, messy middle of Latter-day Saint life. And what is our topic today?
So today we are talking about this concept that comes from Buddhism. It is new. It is fairly new to both of us.
Okay.
So we are not. We're not
Experts?
We're not professionals. We're not psychologists or anything of that.
Or Buddhists.
Correct. We are not. But this is something that is so applicable to us, to anybody, as Christians, as humans. It's great. So we're going to be talking about this concept of the near and far enemy. It turns out I actually heard about this a couple of years ago, and a seed was planted. And when I heard about it again on Saturday for the first time, it totally blossomed into something different. So when you think about a value that you have, we all have these values that guide us and lead us in our lives. And when everybody has a value, you can think of what your far enemy is, what the exact opposite of that value is.
Right.
So that's the far enemy part of it. It's pretty easy to figure out what that is. The difference is there's also this near enemy. So the near enemy is something that is close to the value that you have. It often masks as the value.
It kind of looks like the value.
But it is not the value. And it's actually something that can cause a lot of harm if you live only in that near enemy spot and you're not actually living the value that you have.
So let's get like a basic example to kind of spell out what the far enemy looks like and what the near enemy looks like.
So I listened to a podcast with Brene Brown and Adam Grant. That's where I heard about this on Saturday. And actually it was Brene Brown podcast years ago that I also heard about it.
Very good.
But they talk about one that is the value of generosity.
Okay.
So the far enemy of generosity would be like hatred toward people or like stinginess.
Greed, maybe?
Greed, yeah.
Yeah.
And the near enemy, they both kind of took it one way. But the consensus was that it was doing things that look like they're serving others, but you want all of the glory for it.
So, like you said, it's generosity. So this might be giving in order to be seen.
Yeah.
So people can see you giving and see how great you are.
Right.
And so that it looks just like the value, which is generosity, giving, charitable giving, this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's done, in this case, it's done for the wrong reason.
Right.
And that's what makes it the near enemy. It looks so much like the value, but is pretty harmful, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the near enemy is often masking your ego. It's kind of flaunting itself as righteousness or doing good. A kind of simple way to think about this is the far enemy is easy to spot. Like we said, that it's just the opposite of whatever your virtue is or your value. The near enemy is dangerous because it feels right. It feels like you're doing it right, but you're not actually, like you said, your motivation maybe is wrong.
Got it.
And so it's not actually living out the value. So we have about 6, maybe 7 values that we want to talk through and kind of dig in deep and examine what the near and the far enemies are of each of those things.
And these will be things that we are seeing in church culture, probably, right?
Yes, they all have an LDS application of them that we're going to bring up, but these are values that are just human values.
Great.
They're not necessarily just within the church. And I just want to make sure you remember we are not professionals, right? These are things that we have come up with, and we can link to the podcast that I've listened to, but there's research that you can read. If you just Google the Buddhist concept or principle of near and far values, near and far enemies, this will come up.
Great.
So
let's jump in.
Okay, so the first one is the value of loving kindness. Okay.
Good one. Good place to start.
In Buddhism, loving kindness is unconditional goodwill toward others. not because of what they give you, not because they stay close to you, but because you genuinely want their flourishing.
So it's all about them.
Right.
It's loving kindness because of the person, and you want them to succeed, them to use the word flourish, which I kind of like.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think the far enemy is of loving kindness?
It could be, opposite of love could be hate, certainly, but maybe also indifference.
Yeah. Ill will was another thing that came up. You know, if it's the far enemy, then you want them to not feel love, so you want ill for them.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Okay, so the near enemy is attachment, possessiveness, and neediness. I think this is really interesting because love definitely can, or kindness can, like, hide behind attachment.
Okay, yeah.
So some examples of this is when maybe in a relationship somebody says, I need you to text me back right away, right? I feel anxious if you don't prioritize me.
Okay.
So those things are all very much this attachment and possessiveness, neediness. That's all showing up in that way.
Interesting. Okay.
Love is a contingent. It's tied to validation, control, and emotional security.
Okay.
So do you have any ideas or thoughts on what this would look like in an LDS framework?
Yeah, if we're kind of open-minded about, the far enemy is I mentioned indifference or even contempt or something in there. I think we have a concept of loving kindness, of genuine care for someone in the church, and we say that we want the best for them, but what we really want is for them to follow a prescribed form of faith.
Right.
And so it ends up being conditional. And we're saying, we want the best for you as long as you're going to church and you're this and you're this and you're this and you're this. And all of our kind of cultural, shibboleths that show up. And, unfortunately, we see this sometimes when people, do stop attending church and then they say, all my friends evaporated.
Yeah.
People stopped visiting me.
No one reached out.
Right, exactly. And that's such a heartbreaking but really applicable version of this, which is there was that near enemy. It looked like loving kindness and care, but when they stopped being on that kind of prescribed path, it evaporated. It was gone.
Right, and this can look like you're saying, I want you to stay, be who you are, but also make me feel comfortable.
Yes.
Like, stay so that I can be comfortable.
That's so good.
Stay in this little box that I understand and I can set parameters around so that I can be comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Do it the way I want you to, and I will love you.
Right.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that's kind of the bad way that it shows up in relationships, in an LDS framework. The good way that loving kindness shows up is, I want your growth even if it disrupts my comfort. So I want your growth even if it disrupts my comfort. I honor your agency. I don't need to control you to love you. Those sort of things. Like, that's how this is. You can be aware of your near enemy, but turn it into a growth.
Right.
Into something else.
Yeah, the near enemy highlights the self-centered part of that. The loving kindness is all about loving another person. Once you enter yourself into the equation, like, I'm going to benefit from this somehow, then that becomes the near enemy there.
Yeah. So the attachment or the near enemy says, stay close so I can feel okay, but real love says, go where you need to grow, I'll still be here. You see the difference in that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really compelling.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into our next value.
Okay, what's the next one?
The next one is compassion.
Okay.
Okay.
So kind of similar.
Similar to love, but I think it shows itself differently sometimes. So
Yeah,
compassion is the ability to suffer with someone.
Okay, so what would the far enemy be then?
The far enemy would be cruelty. That you don't, you see them suffering and you're just like, there's indifference. I think indifference shows up in a lot of these. Somebody in the comments also mentioned apathy.
Yep.
I think that shows up in a lot of these. just not caring about people.
Right.
If you have a value, it often will be about caring for others.
Well, the indifference or the apathy is the absence of that value. It's not necessarily opposite of that value, but it's the absence of it, which is actually also really instructive.
Right. And cruelty, I think, is not only the absence of it, but almost wishing harm on people.
Right.
Right. So the near enemy of compassion is pity, which I think is really fascinating. So I heard when Brene Brown and Adam Grant were talking about this, they also talked about sympathy, that sympathy could be the near enemy because you care about them sort of, but you're not caring enough to be there with them, where compassion is the ability to suffer with someone, not taking on their suffering, but being there with them. And the sympathy is kind of a step removed from that, but it masks itself as something good.
Right. And, sympathy, good thing. It's just there's something better than it. Now, I'm interested in the pity one because I think that continues the thread we were talking about on the loving kindness one of it introduces the self-centered portion of this because pity sounds like stinks to be you, glad I'm not in your shoes.
Yes, 100%. The condescension is very much part of that.
Right.
Like the hierarchy of things.
It's literally saying, I feel good because you're worse off than me.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rough.
Yeah. Well, but let's think about how that shows up in the church.
Okay.
Because, again, if we see somebody leave the church, how many of us have heard someone say, that's so sad, they've been deceived. I'm so glad that didn't happen to me.
That's true.
Right? That's making that hierarchy of I'm better because I haven't been deceived.
Yeah. Ooh, yikes.
Right? So, yeah. When we think about ministering even, that can show up as, wow, this person is struggling way more than me. Even that small phrase is making the pity, and it's setting those levels of hierarchy.
Yeah.
Or
I have more to say about ministering, but I'm going to save it.
Okay.
I think we're going to get to a better place for it.
Okay.
In fact, I got a lot of things to say about ministering.
Oh, good. So what's actually happening when you have this pity for people is that you're creating distance and not connection.
Oh.
And compassion is that connection, to be with them in their suffering.
So in some cases, the near enemy ends up looking a whole lot like the far enemy. Because we've got compassion, right, is the value. And the far enemy was cruelty, or even indifference or apathy, and that sort of a thing. And we're talking about pity and making distance between you and the other person. That's dangerously close to apathy.
It is. But I think that the difference is you think that you are helping them by pitying them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You're not wishing harm on them. You're saying, oh, I'm so sorry. That's so sad. I'm so glad that's not me.
Saying it in that tone of voice.
Right? So you are maintaining that superior identity.
Yeah.
Which, when it is done with good intentions, we always talk about good intentions in the church of just being nice. That is masking something.
Right.
Right? And a lot of it is based in fear, and we'll get into how fear kind of runs through all of these in a little bit. So some good examples, some good ways to show that you've become aware of your near enemy. You're not wanting to pity someone, but you actually want your value to come through. You want to be compassionate. You could say, I see your pain and I'm not above it.
Right. I'm here with you.
Exactly. That was the next thing. I'm not here to fix you, but I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of making space like pity does, it's closing that space and being with them.
Exactly. Pity separates you, and compassion means you're kneeling down right by them.
Yep. Yeah. I like that visual.
Okay. Do you have anything else for this one, or should we move on?
Let's go to the next one.
All right. The next one, now this is going to take some defining because I had to look up a definition.
Okay.
The next one is equanimity.
Does that have something to do with horses?
It does not.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge. Okay, so the definition of equanimity is mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. Okay, so this is our temperament. It's I think a lot of our mental ability to handle nuance and paradox.
Okay.
So the far enemy is reactivity or like an emotional roller coaster. You're all over the place with your emotions because
like
you
chaos.
don't, you don't have the mental calmness.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So the near enemy of these is indifference, which we've talked about, numbness and disengagement.
Okay.
So it's not just that you are ignoring it, but that you are kind of choosing to step back from it.
Okay.
Okay. So what this maybe would look like in a familial relationship is saying, I have a great relationship with my brother. We just don't talk anymore. That's not a relationship. That's
Right.
avoidance.
Yep.
Right? So that's not engaging with the brother. That's not having a mental calmness. You're having a quote mental calmness because you're avoiding the situation.
Right. Now, I relate to that in kind of an emotional aspect, and this is something that shows up for men a lot, which is the value being very close to this, being like this cool, unflappable kind of Superman sort of thing. And the near enemy for that, for me, for a long time, was repression.
Yep.
It was this stoicism that came from, again, an unwillingness to engage in my own emotions.
Yeah.
And that came back to bite me later, you know, in a mental health sort of way. And so I can really relate to that one. The equanimity, again, nothing to do with horses, but this kind of calm, or in my case for a long time, this image of calm that I projected.
Right. So, I think that's really fascinating. And I mean, that's where the far enemy of the emotional volatility comes out, that roller coaster, because I think for so many people that repress their emotions for a long, long time, they become explosive sometimes, where like, it's like a volcano and you can't keep it in anymore and you just explode, and then you go back to shoving it all down and ignore it and disengage, and then again...
Lather, rinse, repeat.
Right.
Yeah.
At church, this could show up as somebody saying, I just don't engage with the difficult things anymore.
Right. Okay.
Often, I think this is, I just put that topic on the shelf.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one. I've said that one.
I've said that one.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't deal with it, so I'm going to just put it up on the shelf.
Whether it's polygamy, race, and the priesthood, all the usual suspects. Like, oh, yeah, I'm going to pretend that's not actually a thing.
Yeah. And so you're not having any mental calmness. You're withdrawing from dealing with the issue. Yeah, and like we said, really that's going to come back to bite you at some point.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because when that shelf breaks, I mean, how many times have we heard people talk about that?
Absolutely.
You put too much up there and it's too weighed down, and then it breaks and you're just floundering.
Yep.
Right? So when you are putting things on the shelf, you are having this emotional shutdown that masquerades as spirituality. You think you're doing it all great. You think you're handling things, but shoving it down is not handling anything. It's often avoidance framed as wisdom. We're kind of told to not deal with our our doubts, right? Yeah. We're told to just kind of brush them aside and everything will be answered later.
It's almost this kind of elitist, kind of elevated view of like, oh yeah, no, I'm above those things.
Yeah. So indifference, our far enemy would say, I don't care. I'm just not going to deal with it. And equanimity, when you're truly living that value, says, I care deeply and I'm not overwhelmed by it.
Ooh, yeah.
I can hold these different nuanced things. I can hold paradox, and I'm not going to be overwhelmed and let it sway me.
That's a good one. That's a spiritual maturity kind of thing. That's a stage 3 ability to hold paradox and hold tension.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's hard.
Yes.
Not everybody gets to that point, right? Spiritual
sure.
maturity. Oof.
Yeah.
that's really hard to deal with.
I don't do any kind of maturity.
Oh, please.
All right. What's our next value?
Well, I want to call out this comment.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a hot take here in the comment section. The let them, is it Mel Robbins that does let them? Too often turns to avoidance and resolution never arrives. Yeah, very wise.
Good comment.
I agree. Yeah. All right, our next one is the value is obedience.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this one.
Okay. obedience is kind of one of the core parts of our church, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But not all obedience looks the same. So the far enemy, what do you think the far enemy of the obedience is?
Can I say disobedience?
No, you cannot. Pick a different word.
Not obeying.
Rebellion. Could rebellion fit there?
That works great.
Yeah. Rebellion, I think, is that works.
Yeah. That's a far enemy of obedience. I like that.
Yeah. The near enemy is a fear-driven compliance. So the value is obeying, but the near enemy is doing it with the wrong motive. It is a fear-based compliance. That is not actually obeying anything.
So it's doing the action. It's paying tithing, keeping the word of wisdom, whatever the thing
going
is.
Going to church, going to the temple, reading your scriptures.
All of the things. So this reminds me of the scripture in Moroni 7, where it's about if a man gives a gift and does it grudgingly. Do you know the one?
Yeah.
So let's see, from verse 6, for if he offereth a gift or prayeth unto God, except he shall do it with real intent, it profiteth him nothing. Which is kind of dramatic wording.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it's not as good. It says it profiteth him nothing.
Yeah, it's not worth anything.
And then in verse 8, for behold, if a man being evil giveth a gift, he doeth it grudgingly, wherefore it is counted unto him the same as if he had retained the gift. Wherefore he is counted evil before God. Again, very dramatic.
Yeah.
Really kind of harsh language there. But that's kind of what we're talking about with the obedience one here, is the general concept here is if we are obedient, but because we are wanting to get something out of it, there's something in there that serves us, then it's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're doing it out of fear, like afraid of disappointing God or your leaders or anything, the behavior is actually correct. The action of going to church, going to the temple, those things are seen as correct, but the source is fear and not love.
Right. So the near enemy is the outer expression of that value, but with the inner part hollowed out.
Exactly.
The thing still happens. The casserole gets delivered, the testimony gets born, the calling gets fulfilled, whatever it may be, but without a proper, like, Christ-centered motivation behind it.
Yeah. The scripture is, if you love me, keep my commandments. Not if you're scared of me or if you think you won't actually make it here, keep my commandments.
Or if somebody's watching, keep my commandments.
Right. Yeah, good point. So fear asks, what do I have to do to be safe? And love asks, what does it look like to trust God in this moment?
Yep, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. You ready to move on from obedience?
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, what do we have?
Okay. Our next thing is service. Okay?
Oh, good one too.
We are good at service in this church.
Are we ever?
Just go back to our episode right before this one of doing versus being. We're very good at service, right? So the far enemy of service is selfishness.
Okay.
Right?
Makes total sense.
Yeah, I don't want to serve others. I want everything to be about me. That's the far enemy.
Okay.
The near enemy is people pleasing, and it's self-abandonment.
Oh, okay. So explain that.
So if you are wanting to be someone that serves, but you're doing it because you want to please the people around you, then that's not actually serving. That's not living your value out, right? And if you're doing it for self-abandonment, where meaning you are doing it so much that you lose yourself and you don't care. And I'm not talking about like lose your life in service
yeah,
of
right.
your fellow men or whatever it says. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you are serving, giving so much that you maybe physically are being ill, or you are becoming exhausted and resentful and you can't actually function, you're not living a value of service.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Now I have a little different angle on that.
All right.
On maybe what the near enemy is of like authentic service here. Because you could look at this as the far enemy is a neglect.
Okay.
Of other people instead of serving other people. In which case, the near enemy here, I think, is serving in such a way that it's convenient. and maintains emotional distance. This is kind of like the pity one a little bit about.
Okay, say more about that.
Yeah, so I think in the church what we tend to do is we systematize our service. And so it's a sign-up sheet and it's a regular time to show up or whatever. And that becomes a way for us to like discharge our obligation without like genuinely having presence.
Okay.
And
so you're just kind of going through the motions of doing it because you
because
signed
you're
the paper.
supposed to,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I have a couple of examples, and I'll go through these quick. But I think fast offerings are a really compelling example here.
Interesting.
Fast offerings are great, and they're used for extremely good things. Yeah. They're helping people who can't make their rent, and really really important things. But it also allows you to feel really good without ever having to see somebody that's in need.
Yeah.
And so you go, great, I made this donation. I made a big donation. I am feeling great about it. But it's that making distance, right? It's like,
step
man,
removed.
I feel so good about this donation that I made for all those poor people, whoever is out there that needs that sort of thing. That's a very different thing than showing up and meeting people where you are. You're managing them instead of showing up where they are.
That's actually a complaint that I've heard from members about the church, that we do serve a lot. We are a giving people, but it is because the church just, like, we have these humanitarian funds.
Right.
How many people in the church get to actually go and deliver and be part of the actual service?
Right.
So many of us can just write a number on a paper and it's gone. And like you said, we kind of wash our hands of it and the service is over for us, but we're not actually learning anything from it. We're not connecting with people. There's no connection.
Yeah. So I have one other example, and it's that I signed up for our family to go clean the church building on a Saturday morning in a couple of weeks. Did I do it out of a desire to serve? No, I did not. Did I even do it out of a desire for the church building to be clean? No, not really.
Yeah.
Like, I did it so that I could feel like the kind of person who serves. And maybe even so that other people will think I'm that guy.
Yeah.
That's
the people pleasing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Brother Pimentelli showed up. What a faithful guy, or whatever. Showing up to clean the building. I was literally willing to give up my Saturday morning to get that payout. The payout of, I feel good about myself for having done this.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's some like benevolence in me as well. But when I look back, I was like, no, I did not do that for the right reasons.
Yeah, your near enemy won out on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I made it about me. And that's the near enemy part of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when we are living our value the right way, it includes honesty and boundaries and sustainability, right? Our service, if it makes us resentful or worn down, it's not actually going to be worth it.
When you said resentful and worn down, it reminded me I want to talk about ministering.
All right.
Because here's another thing. Just like the service, just like the cleaning the building and the fast offerings, this is a systematized thing.
Yeah.
And so
it's a friend given to you.
It's an assigned friendship.
Friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, a lot of good comes out of ministering and did out of home teaching and visiting teaching before that. And a lot of people do it really, really well. But at the same time, most of the time, in my experience, it has not been, I'm motivated by a general love for this person and a genuine friendship. Instead, it's, this is a thing I'm supposed to do, and I will feel good if I check it off this month or whatever it is. So ministering, I think, is really, really tricky there. The whole assigned friendship thing is really hard to back with real meaning.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's an easy place for our near enemy to win out.
Yeah.
All right. The last value that I want to talk about is anti-racism.
Great.
Okay, so this is anti-racism is actively working to recognize, confront, and dismantle racism in ourselves and in the systems. And it's rooted in humility, listening, and willingness to change. So the far enemy of anti-racism is overt racism.
Makes
right?
sense to me.
It's the KKK. It's burning crosses on lawn. It's lynching. It's all of that stuff. When people say, "Oh, you're a racist," and someone says, "I'm not racist," that's what they're thinking of. Is the overt part.
Yep. I'm not using racial slurs.
Yeah.
All of those things.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. So the near enemy is actually really tricky.
Okay.
And it is nice racism. That's a term that is floated around, nice racism.
Yeah, we're going to need to hear more about that.
Yeah, nice racism is politeness, it's performative allyship, it's self-protective goodness that avoids real change. So it's people that say, "Oh, I don't see color." That's nice racism because you're actually like telling someone, "I don't see who you are. I don't see what makes you who you are."
Got it.
Right? It's maintaining this self-image of being good or not a racist person, but it avoids the discomfort, the self-examination, or the change that real anti-racism requires. It's racism hidden behind kindness.
Wow.
Yeah. So it sounds great. It sounds great to say, "I don't see color," or "I love everyone," those sort of things. But what it can often do is shut down conversations. And it shows that you're not really a safe person that's willing to hear the hard things and deal with the hard conversation.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It shifts the focus from loving others well to maintaining my identity.
Again,
as a good person.
That's the self-centered part of it shows up in the near enemy. How do I look good coming out of this?
Right. In the LDS framework of it, in our culture, we place a high value on kindness, on niceness, and that's great. That's wonderful. But sometimes the emphasis on being nice can actually make it harder to engage in honest conversations.
Okay.
So
it also kind of makes you defensive right out of the gate. Maybe unwilling to engage in a conversation about racism because you've already said, "Nope, I'm not a part of that, and so I'm not going to engage."
Yeah, and it really takes some humility, like I said earlier, some humility and willingness to examine what your motives are, what your values are, and an openness to being wrong.
Yeah.
I had to unlearn a whole boatload of things and like actually learn real history and, what actually happened. And I did that by listening to people that were different than me, listening to people of color who lived out these things and live every day in these situations, in this systemic racism that's so prevalent in our country. And I don't experience it in the way that they do. And so I had to learn from them.
I love that.
So those are the values that we wanted to bring up. I want to make sure that we know that learning about these near enemies is not about shame, right? It's not about saying like, "Oh, you're not being authentic, you're not being true, you're not living your real values, you're just a fake person." It's not that.
We shouldn't ever, hopefully this goes without saying, we shouldn't ever be using this as a weapon.
Right.
To judge somebody else and say, "Oh yeah, you fell into the near enemy trap." But it is something that we can use on ourselves and say, "Oh, I used to, and now I don't."
Or I'm aware that I am doing this and I need to change it.
Like the cleaning the church thing.
Yeah.
Is unfortunately a good example there. So this is a self-diagnosis tool. This is not something that we can weaponize.
Yeah, because if you're using it to judge other people, you're living in your near enemy of something, right? Like I don't know exactly what that would be.
Yeah, I'm sure we
but
could
maybe a
unpack
desire to be good again. So you're judging other people on their goodness
and making distance between you and them. Oh man, I'm glad I'm not succumbing to my near enemy like that person is. The irony being that, of course, you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's actually, so this was a Buddhist concept, but there is so much scriptural support for this in our scriptures, LDS and Christian scriptures about this. And one scripture that jumped to mind was the entire Sermon on the Mount.
Right. The whole thing.
The whole thing. Well, maybe not quite the whole thing, but in Matthew 6 we have all of these things that Jesus is talking about, and one of them is when he talks about Don't go pray on the street corner so that people will see you. And he says, that's what the hypocrites do. And he says they have their reward. And I think that's so punchy because he's not talking about an eternal reward or anything like that. They're legitimately getting their reward, which is people seeing them. Yeah. They wanted to be seen. They got it.
Yep. They're living in their near enemy state.
And he says, instead, when you pray, go into your closet, shut the door, and pray to your Father in secret, sort of thing.
Actually commune with God.
Right. Which has got to be the value there. And this shows up again and again and again. In Matthew chapter 6, there's the thing about don't do your alms before men to be seen of them. And that whole, instead, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Because the charitable giving is the point, not the being seen for it, not the you gaining something from it. Yeah. That's the near enemy. And he talks about, therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee. Da, 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 here's my donation. And again he says they have their reward. People looked over when the trumpet started the fanfare to introduce their charitable giving there. So in these cases, again, the action is right, prayer is right, charitable giving is right. He talks about fasting, that's right, but the interior motivation has been swapped out for something that serves the self instead.
Yeah, so that's the important thing of learning about the far and the near enemy is it's taking what the behavioral compliance, what our behaviors are, and it's getting in the way of actual transformation, right? Actual heart transformation. And that's what we need to be doing is changing who we are and being aware of all of these things. And I just want to note that I think it's so beautiful that this is a Buddhist concept, but Christian scripture supports it. And that to me shows that truth, there are many pathways to truth, right? And I've heard it said that all the great theologians all come to the same idea, which is often love, right? And so I think this is a great example of that working in these two religious traditions. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I just want to, we had talked about how fear kind of runs under all of this. So I just kind of want to go through that briefly. So at the core of the near enemy, they're trying to protect an ego, right?
Yeah.
We have our value, but our ego always gets in the way, and the near enemy is trying to protect it and saying, no, you're doing okay. You're doing good enough. It's fine.
Right.
But that's not actually the value. So I'm just going to go through these quickly, but the attachment, which we had talked about, is a fear of loss. It's masking a fear of loss. Pity is a fear of equality. Indifference is a fear of emotional overwhelm. Compliance is a fear of punishment, and certainty is the fear of uncertainty. So these are things that get in the way of us actually doing things and doing our value, living our value, and it's all based in fear.
Some of those are punchy, like the fear of equality. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Trying to make that space, seeing ourselves as better than other people, that fear of being equal with somebody that we see as, kind of lesser or less obedient or less righteous or spiritual than us in some way.
Yeah.
Woof. That's a tough one.
Yeah. So the behavior may look loving, our near enemy may look loving, but the engine is fear. And so that if it's fear, then that's not the real thing, even if it looks like it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So I want to let's skip down to the end here. Some questions to ask ourselves to figure out, am I living in my near enemy state or am I actually living my value? Okay. So some of the questions are, is this rooted in love or fear?
Great start.
Am I trying to control or to bless? I think the control is really interesting because you want to have control over outcomes, over reactions, over, how people are seeing you.
That's what I was going to add. Yeah, your image.
Right. And so if you're doing it to actually bless people, what you think or feel doesn't really matter. Right. Does this create connection or hierarchy? Is there anxiety underneath this, quote, good behavior? Am I doing a good thing but feeling really anxious and awkward and weird about it?
I felt that way about home teaching the entire time that home teaching existed.
Yeah. And then the last one is, would this still exist if no one saw it?
Okay.
So those are some things we can ask ourselves to figure out if we're giving in to our near enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is not about shame. This is about refinement. There's really fascinating examples, and maybe we need to do a part 2 on this, about what this concept of near and far enemy looks like from a stage 2 moving into a stage 3 I don't know, existence.
Right.
Living in stage 3.
Yeah, Richard Rohr talks about building the container in the first half of life. That's the actions. And then filling it with meaning in the second half of life. That's the moving more toward the value and away from the near enemy.
Right, yeah. So I think that this is fascinating, and we have just barely scraped the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could talk about this, but I'd love to hear in the comments or wherever you are, send a message to us if you have maybe a thought of like, here's a value I have, here's the far enemy, here's what I think the near enemy is. Like, let's talk about it. Like, we'd love to hear what you've come up with of what your far and near enemies are to things.
Yeah, this has been so interesting to unpack, and a helpful lens, I think, going forward.
Yeah, yep. All right, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
As always, you can find us on Instagram. I'm at From the Overflow.
And I'm at The Vision Beautiful. We'll see you next time.
See ya.